Hi, I can sit there. How's it going? So great to be here in Rio. Have had such a great time and so impressed with Stellar and what they have put on here. So really excited to be here. I'm Natasha Hoskins. I'm one of the co-founders of Boys Club. Boys Club is a media organization that focuses on emerging technology, primarily crypto, and how it intersects with people's everyday lives. So this panel is definitely something I'm excited to talk about and have a great group of panelists. I'm just going to move this here so that I can see you guys better. So I'd love to start with you guys just introducing yourselves and also maybe saying what crypto doesn't have to be hard means to you personally. I think we all have our own stuff that we're bringing to crypto, both in our work and in our lives. So yeah, would love, why don't you start?
So, Jason, Karsh, the CMO of Phone Development Foundation. I got my start in crypto at Coinbase back in early 2018. And I think what's surprising to me is since then, I've basically been in the same recurring dream, which is that I have to keep explaining things that are hard to grok because of the jargon. But it's just so simple. I think the more that we abstract away these hard terminology, the better we've seen even conversion at places like Coinbase, Blockchain.com, and now Stellar.
Yeah, I'm Debbie. I'm the head of marketing for Privy, which does wallet infrastructure that lies underneath probably a lot of the crypto apps that you guys use. I guess when I think about crypto that doesn't have to be hard, I think about hiding away the wires. I have real OCD about being able to see wires everywhere, like just in general. So, yeah, that's kind of what I think about as an analogy.
Hey guys, my name is Wouter, founder of Beans, non-custodial wallet where people that don't know about blockchain can send, spend, and earn. And for me, crypto doesn't have to be hard means that crypto shouldn't be crypto, actually. It should just be money. People want to send, they want to spend, but they are generally, apart from you guys, not interested into blockchain. They just want money.
Great. Yeah, I totally agree. And I think something that Wouter, we've talked a bit about is I've been in crypto for years. I have heard conversations and spoken on so many panels about educating and onboarding and how do we do that well and what does that look like. And I really love your perspective around it. And I think it plays really nicely into design decisions, UX, UI. So I'd love for you to sort of talk about your philosophy around when people talk about onboarding and education, what that sort of means to you or like what your perspective is of that being a core tenet of something to prioritize.
For education, I actually believe we should not focus on it. We should just build products that don't need education. So I think focusing on education just puts you off on building products that need the education part. So I think we should just build products that people understand and abstract away all the things that make it difficult for them. If you need to explain it, it's just not good enough.
Yeah, and I think Privy has done this in an incredible way. You guys have completely transformed the way that I think about what a wallet infrastructure or a wallet design experience can look like. I use it all the time in all of these different consumer apps that I use in crypto, and it's totally obfuscated from something that's right in your face and makes it so easy for people. And so you guys have done a really great job sort of thinking about how that happens in the interface. But I also think there's so much more that a wallet can be than just this like sign-on function. So I'd love for you to give a little sense of like, okay, as we're experiencing these new ways and much easier ways as crypto develops with sign-on, what it's also going to give to users as we have this now tons of data about the way that people are spending and the way that they're interacting online.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing is that we actually all interact with wallets every day, not necessarily crypto wallets, but I think if you look at our Starbucks balances, our Amazon balances, DoorDash balances, these are all wallets. The thing is that they just kind of sit there and they don't really do anything, and until you actually want to spend them the next time. But I think what's really fascinating with all of the work that we've done with Privy, obviously the first step was really how do we make spinning up a wallet really easy for the average user, where somebody doesn't have to battle with seed phrases, think about browser extensions, write down 24 seed phrases on a piece of paper and hope it doesn't get lost. So I think we've solved that piece of it, and the world has significantly leveled up in that way. But what I think is really exciting about the next phase, especially as we look at stablecoin adoption, is is really how programmatic these wallets can be. So these wallets are no longer just kind of static vaults where your assets sit there. There's so many other things that you could do with it, whether you're, if you are building a trading app, for example, allowing somebody to set limit orders and ensuring that these transactions can happen even when the user is offline. There are lots of things that we have explored in the creator economy where we're looking at, splits of royalty payments. And all of a sudden, your money can go a lot further. Well, plugging into DeFi protocols so they're earning yield. And all of a sudden, your money isn't just money anymore. It's not just money that's just sitting in like a piggy bank. It's actually really doing some incredibly powerful things for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so excited to be a part of that and see all of that come to life. I have been following Privy for a long time and just love what you guys are up to. Okay, I think that something that you said, the magic word, stablecoins. If I were playing a drinking game these past 2 days and stablecoins were when I had to drink, I would be under the table. We're talking about it a lot, which I love, and there's so much that we can sort of explore in that conversation as it relates to design. And so, Jason, I'd love for you to talk a little bit about, stablecoins and global money movements are really at the heart of this conference and a lot of what we're talking about here at Meridian. How do you see the user experience of stablecoins really evolving over the next couple of years? What do you think it unlocks for consumers and institutions as this becomes just like such a big part of the industry?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. One of the reflections I've had over the last couple days and even the last few years is how we kind of over-rotate to use buzzwords and use industry speak to describe very straightforward, simple concepts. And where stablecoins shine is that it's just a dollar or a euro, etc. And it's just a digital programmable version of it. And the more that we rotate too much on the rails and what network it's on and is it interoperable and what wallet is it compatible with and what exchange can you get it on, I think that obfuscates the pure simplicity of why stablecoins are so powerful to be able to globally engage in commerce, have equality of opportunity, not be based on where you are, but just based on your access to the internet. And I think to some degree, abstracting away what both Privy and Beans are doing is just giving this layer of making it easy for someone to do what they want, save in dollars or have a wallet, just kind of live in another consumer product and not talk about the infrastructure. Because too often in Web 2, when I worked in Web 2, no one talked about the database structure or Ajax and how the UI was really cool that it refreshed consistently. They just talked about the end thing they wanted. And to some degree, we've kind of led with infrastructure as an industry, and we talk about it from an infrastructure point of view. And I think that's great, but it's also really incomprehensible to average people. So I love products that are built that abstract that away.
Yeah, and Beans does this, and I think something that we've talked about and we see a lot is not only talking about the infrastructure, but also making design decisions based on one specific type of user. And for a long time, for I think a lot of crypto, it was for traders. And so many of the design decisions that products and services were making were designed for these types of individuals because a lot of transactions are coming through their wallet. It makes a ton of sense, but you can kind of lose the forest for the trees in that type of decision making and miss out on so many users that have a lot of everyday needs that crypto can solve for. And I think Beans is obviously doing that. So I'd love for you to talk a little bit about remittances, the scale that's available to that industry, and the design decisions that you feel really are essential to making that something that is mainstream that any user can experience and use on the day-to-day.
Yeah, so one thing we feel strong about is to use local stablecoin a lot. A lot of apps use dollar stablecoins, but for a user that's weird. So in our app, you can just move, for example, Argentine peso to your Argentine peso balance, which are then stablecoin, but the user doesn't really care about it. Then say they want to send to someone in Europe. The person in Europe has defined what they prefer to receive, for example, euros, and all they do is send to their username, and the app auto converts it. Without any fees, no crypto complexity, like no on-chain fees even. So these kind of things are important for us. And even we have earn balances, which is DeFi in the backend. There's no gas fees there. There's usernames instead of public keys. So that, like everywhere you see crypto complexity, you have to think about, all right, how do we hide this?
Yeah.
And I think like the for the future, it's very important to have more local stablecoin to make this like easier to adopt as well.
Yeah, that's such a theme that I've heard again and again the past few days, and makes a ton of sense. And I think for Privy, you guys are sitting across a huge spectrum of this industry. You do consumer crypto stuff, you do institutional enterprise stuff, and I'm curious how you guys are thinking about. Are you designing products that are specific to these use cases? Are you designing products that you feel can run the gamut of these different sort of use cases? And so I'm curious how you guys are talking about that internally, how you think about that, and then also how you then market it, because those two things are sometimes very different.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, for Privy, when we think about all infrastructure, there are certain things that are table stakes, since that security is one of them. So, it's the same kind of underlying security, and without getting too technical, it combines, trusted execution environments, which is which are hardware-backed secure enclaves, combined with key sharding. So we know that nobody can have access to the key other than a rightful owner, not even Privy. So I think security is something that is uncompromisable, regardless of whether you're building a consumer crypto app or a high performance trading app where somebody is holding on to like millions of dollars, or an enterprise fintech. So I think that's table stakes. And then similarly, I think for the consumer UX experience, that has to feel really seamless as well. I think when we talk to a lot of our trading customers, even though their top customers are the people that maybe are, deeply speculative in nature and are, trading lots of volume every single day, ultimately these exchanges want to make it easy for somebody to be able to start becoming a trader. And they're interested in an experience that allows them to take that same wallet across web, desktop, mobile, even Telegram. And so all of these things are, the same for whether you're building in consumer, where you're maybe not making that many transactions a day, or whether you're building for, say, a regulated fintech, which might have higher compliance requirements. Beyond that, I do think that obviously each of these customers have different requirements. So naturally, for trading platforms, they value latency a lot more. Like, they're looking for something like sub 20 millisecond transactions, because, they want to get into trade before anybody else can. And obviously, if you are on a creator platform where you're saying collecting somebody's piece of work as an NFT, that latency may not be as important, and the implementation may not be as important. So I think we have generally a very flexible approach and modular approach in a way that we build our infrastructure, making it so that depending on the use case, depending on what our customers need, they can pick and choose what works best for them. And I think kind of going back to the idea of security, so the underlying security infrastructure is the same, but how people approach security is going to be different. If I'm playing a game that, I don't know, I don't play games anymore, I'm old, but like say Candy Crush, and you put like $10 in there, like, do you really want to have to go through MFA and to access your $10 in Candy Crush? Like, probably not. But maybe I got really rich off Candy Crush and now I have $5,000 in Candy Crush. Then it might now make sense to layer on like additional security. So I think the way that we think about it is, always really closely in communication with our customers, and, obviously advising that maybe at certain thresholds, it might be worth kind of adding certain layers of protection. But, ultimately, kind of not implementing some of these things for their sake, and prioritizing ultimately what that end user experience should be.
And I think also a unique challenge that you all have, that I think other builders and founders in the room might have as well, is that you are building for other brands. You're a B2B business, but at the end of the day, there is a trust that's required from many of the consumers in Privy as well. And so I'm curious, how do you think about how you market that, and where there are places that you feel you need to show up to both speak to those brands, but also build that brand trust with consumers as well?
Yeah, and obviously, I think when you're in the business of wallets, or you're in the business of payments, or anything, financial related, trust is, well, first of all, I always say that trust has to be earned, not given, and it takes a long time to build up, but it can be, torn away really, really quickly. And so, I think for our consumers, they aren't necessarily, or end users, they're not necessarily people that we speak directly to. But I think at this point, for customers that choose not to white label their wallets and just use out of the box UIs, I think they've got pretty familiar with seeing that protected by Privy, like foot mark or word mark at the bottom. And I think it's good for a lot of people where they feel, okay, somebody's using Privy, I feel like I can trust this app. And so I think that goes a long way in kind of reinforcing that messaging that we wish to tell. But at the same time, we deal with many customers as well that, want to have a fully branded experience over their wallets, and that's totally okay as well. Like, we don't insist on needing to put Privy out there. In fact, and we talked about in the beginning about why crypto doesn't have to be hard, and I talk about hiding the wires. I think for me, like when we hide the wires that it's built on Privy, sometimes this actually works in our advantage because it means that things are really working, and people don't even need to know that there is that crypto complexity that's happening under there.
Yeah. Okay, Jason, back to you. You've been in this industry for a long time. You've been a marketer for a long time, and something that you spoke to a little bit earlier, and that I've heard you say is, don't ship your org chart. And being in crypto for the past few years, I see that a lot. And I always want to like shake founders and be like, no, 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 don't do this. So I'm curious, like, what's some advice that you would give as people, as the infrastructure is so important, the way that it's built is important to a lot of people in this industry. But as we're thinking about mainstream adoption, that being sort of like a language and a value set that maybe doesn't translate. So I'd love for you to give some advice as founders that are maybe approaching it that way. What's a way to come at it from a different perspective, or what's more important to them when thinking about marketing their product?
I think a lot of times leaders, founders, they sort of think of even communicating their product as separate from the product. And my hot take is that your product strategy is your marketing strategy, is your partner strategy, is your fundraising strategy. And if you think of them as one cohesive strategy, you'd think it starts with the story. What is the VC who's funding you actually betting on? What is the actual value you're providing to the user? And too often, if you just start there, and when I was at Google, the CMO had this very simple chart of how she thought of marketing. She said, know the user, know the magic, connect the two. And people make it overly complex because they're like, oh, well, we're going to have our PRD, our product strategy, and then right at the very end, we'll bring in a marketing and comms person, and we're going to have them kind of spin this into something fun. And then they come and say, well, there's not really much here except this that we can say in the story. And that would have been really a better conversation at the product design phase, at the pitch phase. And so don't ship your org chart. It actually start with the story, and realize that the story is integral to everything that your end consumer is going to imagine and think about.
I love that. Start with the story is something I'm going to tattoo it on my head. I'm like, okay, great. I think that's a principle for everybody's life. Okay, so we're in this really great moment in crypto. A lot of the wires have been able to be hidden. There's a lot that we can do. What do you think, and this can go to anybody, what do you think some of the biggest sort of still things that we need to overcome, issues that you're seeing, improvements that you feel like can be made from a user UX UI perspective, that feels really urgent to anybody on the stage here?
Yeah, for me, coming back to local stablecoins, we just need way more of those, and then also on and off ramps. We do have them, but I think we need way more easy UX on and off ramps with low fees to get into local stablecoins. That's like the most important thing for us to abstract that part away.
Yeah, I guess for me, it kind of spans two things. I think one, definitely on the regulatory front, that ties back into off-ramps. I think there is definitely an off-ramp bottleneck. I think depending on the country that you're looking at off-ramp in, it may not necessarily be the most straightforward. I think we also have different definitions of what custody means in different countries, which makes it challenging, I think, to roll out different kinds of models, whether it's a completely self-custodial wallet, whether it's a third-party custody model. And I think obviously it's hard when you're managing a business that spans a lot of different, geographies. And then I think last, obviously, there are a lot of chains, and I fully believe that the world will remain a multi-chain one. But obviously, the more chains that there are, the more complicated it is in terms of like bridging from one to the other. And I do think that we've made some headway there. But I think to really get to kind of seamless interoperability, there's I think a lot more that could be done in that front.
Piggybacking off of what Debbie just said, I think that we are in an multi-chain world. There's not going to be that many chains at the final consolidation. There'll be a few key networks, and it could be dozens, it could be 3. But I think right now we kind of approach problems and products from one chain. And I think if we started with the know the user, know the magic, you can't create magic if you create all these frictions of moving things around. You should be able to, if you create a wallet, it's probably in your best interest to play nicely with a lot of chains. If you create a stablecoin, same thing. I think that's the key. Just make it simpler.
Yeah. Okay, thank you so much. That was our panel. If you guys want to give it up for these great speakers. Thank you. And I'll pass it back to you.
Yeah, thank you, panelists, for coming on stage.